The pantheon that came first. What if Yahweh wasn't the original God of the Israelites at all, but a latecomer who usurped the throne from an entire pantheon of African deities who had been guiding humanity for thousands of years before Hebrew scripture was ever written? In 1929, archaeologists working at Ras Shamra in Syria uncovered clay tablets that would shatter everything mainstream religion teaches about monotheism. These Ugaritic texts, dating to 1400 BCE, revealed that the Hebrew Yahweh was originally just one God among many in an ancient pantheon led by the supreme African deity, El, whose worship extended throughout Canaan centuries before Jewish. Monotheism was invented, but what they found next was even more explosive. The tablets contained detailed genealogies of divine families that ruled the ancient world, with African gods holding the highest positions of cosmic authority. Yahweh appears not as the supreme creator, but as a junior deity assigned to govern a small tribal group, while the real cosmic powers, with distinctly African names and attributes, controlled the fundamental forces of existence. Dr. Mark Smith, the Yale professor who spent decades translating these texts before his research was mysteriously defunded, discovered that early Hebrew religion was polytheistic, with Yahweh competing for supremacy against older, more powerful African deities. The Bible we know today is the result of a theological coup that erased an entire divine hierarchy. Dr. Smith wrote in his unpublished final manuscript, "The cover-up began when Hebrew scribes realized their tribal god couldn't compete with the cosmic powers." Worshipped throughout Africa, ancient Nubian inscriptions, discovered in 1960 but kept classified by the Sudanese Department of Antiquities, show that kingdoms throughout Africa maintained relationships with a sophisticated pantheon of cosmic intelligences for over 4,000 years. These weren't primitive tribal spirits. They were advanced beings who provided technologies, wisdom and guidance that built some of humanity's greatest civilizations, and they were all systematically written out of biblical history. The original supreme deity was El-Am, the African cosmic father whose name appears over 2,000 times in Hebrew texts disguised as Elohim. Ancient Egyptian temple inscriptions describe El-Am as the hidden god who created the creators, a transcendent intelligence who delegated cosmic responsibilities to specialized divine beings, each governing specific aspects of reality. Hebrew scribes encountered this sophisticated theological system during their time in Egypt and Ethiopia. But their tribal mentality couldn't comprehend cosmic governance that didn't center on their particular group. So they stole the names, merged the personalities, and claimed it was all one jealous God who chose them exclusively. But the evidence of the original African pantheon remains embedded throughout biblical texts for those who know how to recognize it. El Shaddai, traditionally translated as God Almighty, is actually the Hebrew corruption of the African El Shaddai, the cosmic mother, goddess who governed fertility and abundance throughout Nubia. Ancient Kushite texts describe El Shaddai as the divine, feminine principle who birthed the universe. Through cosmic consciousness, she was worshipped from Ethiopia to Egypt as the source of all creation, the nurturer of gods and humans alike. When Hebrew patriarchs encountered her worship, they couldn't accept a female creator deity, so they masculinized her name and absorbed her attributes into their tribal god. El Elyon, the Most High God, derives from the African El Elyon, the Sky Father, who ruled from the celestial realm. Nubian astronomical texts describe El Elyon as the cosmic intelligence who established the laws governing stellar movements, planetary alignments, and dimensional relationships. African civilizations built their calendars, agricultural cycles, and spiritual practices according to El Elyon's cosmic protocols. The Hebrew Most High is a pale shadow of the original African sky god who commanded respect from divine beings across multiple star systems. but the most explosive evidence involves Asherah, Yahweh's original African wife, who was systematically erased from biblical history. Archaeological excavations throughout Palestine have uncovered thousands of inscriptions referring to Yahweh and his Asherah, proving that early Hebrew worship included the African goddess as Yahweh's divine consort. She wasn't a foreign influence corrupting pure monotheism. She was Yahweh's original African partner, whose worship predated Hebrew religion by millennia. Ancient Ethiopian texts describe Asherah as Aset Ra, the cosmic queen who governed divine justice, spiritual wisdom, and sacred sexuality. Her worship extended from Sudan to Syria, with massive temples, priestess schools, and healing centers that served populations across 3 continents. When Hebrew tribes encountered her established religious network, they initially incorporated her worship, but later eliminated all traces to support their monotheistic revision. The theological theft involved an entire divine family. African religious traditions recognized Asherah as the mother of over 70 divine children, each governing specific aspects of human experience. Baal was her son, who controlled weather and fertility. Anat was her daughter, who governed war and protection. Yam was her son, who ruled the seas and chaos forces. Hebrew scriptures present these as false gods that Israelites were forbidden to worship. But archaeological evidence proves they were the original divine family that Yahweh joined through marriage to Asherah. The biblical war against foreign gods was actually Yahweh's campaign to eliminate his African in-laws and claim sole authority over their cosmic territories. The evidence is overwhelming. When you know where to look, biblical place names consistently preserve memories of pre-Yahwistic African divine worship. Beth El means house of El, not Yahweh, but the African cosmic father. Balpur, Beelzebub, and dozens of other locations were named after African deities whose worship predated Hebrew settlement by centuries. Even Jerusalem derives from Yerushalayim, meaning city of Shalem, the African god of cosmic peace and completion. Ancient Jebusite inscriptions show that Jerusalem was a sacred city dedicated to African divine worship long before David conquered it. The Temple Mount wasn't built for Yahweh originally. It was constructed on a site already sacred to African deities who had been worshipped there for over 1,000 years. But the most shocking discovery involves the African origins of Yahweh himself. The name Yahweh doesn't appear in any Hebrew text before 1200 BCE, but it shows up in Egyptian inscriptions from 1400 BCE, referring to Yahu, a Nubian storm god worshipped by African mercenaries in Egyptian armies. Hebrew tribes encountered Yahweh worship during their time in Egypt and adopted this African deity as their tribal protector. Yahweh wasn't originally Hebrew at all. He was an African god who was recruited to serve Hebrew political purposes. Ancient Nubian texts describe Yahu as a volcanic deity associated with Mount Horeb in the Sinai Peninsula, the same mountain where Moses supposedly encountered the burning bush. The burning bush wasn't a miracle. It was a volcanic manifestation of an African god who was already established in that region. The theological implications are staggering. If Yahweh was originally an African deity operating under African cosmic authority, then Hebrew monotheism is built on cultural theft and spiritual rebellion. The jealous, exclusive God of the Old Testament represents an African deity who was separated from his cosmic family and turned against his original pantheon. This explains Yahweh's consistent hostility toward other deities throughout biblical narratives. He wasn't fighting false gods. He was battling his former African colleagues in a cosmic civil war, triggered by Hebrew theological manipulation. The pattern of divine warfare throughout the Old Testament reflects Yahweh's campaign to eliminate evidence of his African origins. Every divine conflict in biblical narratives involves Yahweh attacking deities who were his original pantheon partners. Baal, Asherah, Chemosh, Dagon, and others weren't foreign invaders. They were Yahweh's African family, members who refused to accept his claim to exclusive authority. Modern archaeological discoveries are confirming what African traditions always preserved: ancient Cushite texts contain detailed accounts of the God who betrayed his family, referring to Yahweh's rebellion against African cosmic order. Ethiopian manuscripts describe how Yahweh was eventually contained and his influence limited to prevent further disruption of cosmic harmony. This is why African civilizations continued to flourish while Hebrew kingdoms faced constant instability. African peoples maintained their connections to the complete cosmic pantheon, while Hebrews were trapped serving a rebellious deity who had severed his cosmic support systems. The misfortunes that plagued ancient Israel weren't divine tests, they were the natural consequences of worshipping a God who was at war with cosmic order. But the African deities never abandoned humanity. Ethiopian monasteries preserved traditions of ongoing communication with the original cosmic pantheon that Yahweh tried to replace. These divine beings continued guiding human spiritual development through African religious systems, while Hebrew monotheism struggled with the limitations of serving a single, isolated deity. The truth about pre-Yahwistic African divine authority is being rediscovered by Hebrew scholars themselves. Israeli archaeologists are uncovering evidence that confirms the African origins of their religious traditions, but their findings are being suppressed to avoid challenging Jewish theological foundations. The evidence is too overwhelming to hide much longer. DNA analysis of ancient Middle Eastern populations confirms significant African ancestry among biblical peoples. Ancient Israelites weren't genetically distinct from their African neighbors. They were part of the same continental population that worshipped the same continental pantheon. The separation was theological, not ethnic, and it was artificially created to serve political purposes. But the most explosive revelation is still coming. Hidden in biblical texts themselves are coded references to the original African pantheon that Yahweh displaced. Every biblical angel represents a demoted African deity. Every demon is a demonized cosmic intelligence who refused to accept Yahweh's authority. The entire biblical narrative is actually the story of an African divine civil war told from the perspective of the winning side. However, the African deities who were written out of biblical history are beginning to reclaim their authentic roles in human spiritual development. The divine hierarchy that ruled first buried beneath the Egyptian sand for over 3,000 years lay a black granite stele that would rewrite everything scholars thought they knew about ancient religion. It contained the complete organizational chart of the African cosmic government that ruled the known world centuries before Yahweh was even conceived as a deity. The Stele of Divine Order was discovered in 1923 by British archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie during excavations at Tanis. But its contents were so revolutionary that the Egyptian Department of Antiquities immediately sealed it from public view. The hieroglyphic inscriptions revealed a sophisticated cosmic hierarchy with African deities holding every major position of universal authority. Dr. Selim Hassan, the Egyptian archaeologist who secretly photographed the stele before it was hidden away, spent the rest of his life trying to publish his translations. His complete notes, finally released by his family in 1987, prove that ancient African civilizations operated under divine governance that made Hebrew monotheism look like primitive tribal mythology. At the apex of cosmic authority stood Atum-Ra, the African supreme creator whose very name means self-created completeness. Ancient Nubian texts describe Atum-Ra not as a personal deity demanding worship, but as pure cosmic consciousness that manifested reality through thought alone. He didn't create the universe from nothing. He became the universe by dividing his infinite awareness into specialized cosmic intelligences, each designed to govern specific aspects of existence. Unlike the jealous, demanding Yahweh who required exclusive devotion, Atum-Ra operated through delegation and cooperation. He empowered other divine beings to function as cosmic administrators, each maintaining direct connection to the Supreme Source while exercising autonomous authority in their assigned domains. This wasn't primitive polytheism, it was advanced cosmic government. Below Atum-Ra in the Yi hierarchy were the Neteru, the African Cosmic Council, who established universal laws and maintained dimensional stability. These weren't mythological figures invented by primitive minds. Ancient African texts describe them as actual beings with specific responsibilities, personality traits, and technological capabilities that enabled them to govern reality at quantum levels. PTAH served as cosmic architect and divine engineer. His domain included the fundamental forces that determine how consciousness structures matter into stable forms. Ancient Memphis texts contain technical specifications that Ptah provided for building pyramids, temples, and other structures that channel cosmic energy. The precision engineering that modern technology struggles to replicate was achieved through direct divine instruction from Ptah. Thoth functioned as cosmic intelligence officer and divine mathematician. He governed information systems, dimensional calculations, and consciousness technologies that allowed different levels of reality to interface properly. Ancient Egyptian texts credit Thoth with teaching humanity writing, mathematics, and astronomy, but these weren't primitive discoveries. They were advanced technologies downloaded directly from cosmic intelligence networks. Mayat served as cosmic justice administrator and universal law enforcer. Her responsibility involved maintaining balance between opposing forces throughout all dimensions of existence. Unlike human legal systems based on punishment and control, Mahat's justice operated through natural consequences that automatically realigned disrupted cosmic harmony. She didn't judge, she simply restored balance through precise application of universal principles. Sekhmet operated as cosmic healing officer and divine physician. Her domain included biological systems, energy field maintenance, and consciousness repair technologies that could instantly restore optimal function to any living being. Ancient Egyptian medical papyri contain healing formulas that Sekhmet transmitted directly to properly trained practitioners. These treatments worked because they addressed consciousness disruptions that cause physical disease. Each African deity possessed capabilities that fulfilled human needs more effectively than anything Yahweh ever provided, where Yahweh offered conditional promises requiring faith and obedience. The African Neteru provided immediate practical assistance based on cosmic law rather than personal preference. They weren't worshipped because they demanded it. They were honored because their guidance produced consistent beneficial results. But the most sophisticated aspect of African cosmic government involved collaborative decision-making. Unlike Yahweh's autocratic rule that brooked no questioning or discussion, the Neteru operated through consensus councils where cosmic decisions emerged from collective wisdom rather than individual decree. Ancient texts describe regular divine assemblies where cosmic administrators coordinated their activities to ensure universal harmony. Osiris served as divine mediator and consciousness continuity manager. His responsibility involved facilitating smooth transitions between different states of existence, particularly the consciousness transfer processes that humans call death and birth. Unlike religious concepts of judgment after death, Osiris provided technical assistance that enabled consciousness to maintain coherent identity while adapting to different dimensional conditions. Death became education rather than termination under Osiris's guidance. Isis functioned as cosmic healing coordinator and divine mother administrator. Her domain included feminine creative principles, nurturing technologies, and protective systems that ensured optimal development for all forms of consciousness. Ancient texts describe Isis as the divine intelligence who perfected the biological forms that consciousness uses for physical experience. Human bodies were designed according to specifications that Isis developed through cosmic engineering principles. Horus operated as cosmic warrior and divine protector. His responsibility involved defending conscious beings from forces that would limit or corrupt their development. Unlike Yahweh's warfare against other deities, Horus battled cosmic parasites and consciousness viruses that threatened to degrade universal intelligence. He protected the entire system rather than favoring one particular group. The African divine hierarchy extended far beyond Egyptian deities. Throughout Nubia, Ethiopia, and the broader African continent, cosmic governance included hundreds of specialized divine administrators, each governing specific aspects of reality with precision and efficiency that made later religious systems look chaotic and primitive. Apidimak served as divine strategy coordinator and cosmic logistics manager in Nubian territories. His domain involved optimizing resource distribution and consciousness development programs across vast geographical regions. Ancient Kushite texts describe Apidimak as the divine intelligence who established trade networks, educational systems, and spiritual development programs that connected African civilizations across thousands of miles. Sebu Mecca functioned as cosmic communication officer and dimensional interface specialist throughout Ethiopian territories. His responsibility included maintaining clear channels between physical and non-physical realms, enabling human populations to receive direct guidance from cosmic intelligence. Ethiopian manuscripts contain detailed, technical instructions that Sebu Mecca provided for building consciousness amplification systems and divine communication arrays. The organizational sophistication exceeded anything in later religious traditions, where Hebrew scriptures present God as a solitary figure making arbitrary decisions. African texts describe integrated cosmic management systems, where every divine action served the development of universal consciousness. No single deity claimed exclusive authority because cosmic responsibilities were too vast and complex for individual administration. But the most remarkable aspect involved direct accessibility. Unlike Yahweh, who required priestly intermediation and elaborate rituals to approach, the African Neteru maintained open communication channels with properly prepared humans. Ancient texts contain specific protocols for contacting different divine administrators directly according to particular needs or questions. This wasn't primitive superstition, it was advanced spiritual technology. Archaeological excavations throughout Africa continue to uncover temples and sacred sites designed as communication terminals for specific divine administrators. These structures generate measurable electromagnetic effects that enhance human consciousness and facilitate direct divine contact. Modern scientific analysis confirms that ancient African sacred architecture operates according to principles that current technology is only beginning to understand. The buildings themselves are consciousness amplification devices that make divine communication practically accessible rather than mystically distant. But when Hebrew tribes encountered this sophisticated cosmic government, their tribal mentality couldn't comprehend distributed divine authority. They were accustomed to human leadership patterns based on dominance and submission. The concept of cooperative divine administration that served universal benefit rather than tribal preference was too advanced for their cultural development level. So they simplified the system by combining multiple divine administrators into one tribal deity who would focus exclusively on their particular needs. Yahweh represents a degraded fusion of African cosmic administrators who were stripped of their specialized functions, and reduced to serving Hebrew political purposes. This theological reduction had devastating consequences. By severing connections to the complete cosmic hierarchy, Hebrew religion lost access to the specialized divine assistance that made African civilizations so successful. Instead of cosmic engineers, healers, teachers, and protectors, they were left with one overworked deity trying to fulfill responsibilities that required specialized divine administration. The results were predictable: constant crisis, warfare, exile, and spiritual confusion. Hebrew scriptures honestly document the failures of their reduced theological system. The disasters that plagued ancient Israel weren't divine tests. They were natural consequences of disconnecting from cosmic support systems that sustained other civilizations. But the African cosmic hierarchy never disappeared. While Hebrew religion struggled with the limitations of theological reduction, African civilizations continued operating under complete divine governance that provided stability, prosperity, and spiritual development for thousands of years. The cosmic administrators continued their universal responsibilities regardless of Hebrew rejection. Modern African spiritual traditions still maintain contact with the original cosmic hierarchy. Ethiopian monasteries, Yoruba priesthood systems, and traditional healers throughout Africa demonstrate ongoing relationships with the same divine administrators who governed ancient civilizations. They provide healing, guidance, and spiritual development assistance that religious systems based on Hebrew theology cannot match. The evidence is becoming undeniable as ancient texts are finally translated without religious censorship. Computer analysis of hieroglyphic and cuneiform inscriptions consistently reveals sophisticated cosmic government systems that operated throughout the ancient world before monotheistic revision eliminated most divine administrators from theological recognition. The African cosmic hierarchy that ruled before Yahweh is being rediscovered by scholars worldwide. And as this knowledge spreads, people are beginning to question why they should limit themselves to one overworked tribal deity when they could have access to an entire cosmic government designed to serve universal consciousness development. But the restoration of contact with the original African divine hierarchy threatens to expose the most carefully guarded secret in religious history. Topic 3. The Cosmic Coup that changed everything, hidden in the deepest vaults of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church lies a manuscript so dangerous that only 3 people have been allowed to read it in the last 500 years. It contains the complete account of how Yahweh betrayed the African cosmic hierarchy and staged the most devastating divine rebellion in universal history. The Chronicle of the Fallen Star was written by Abba Salama, the 4th century Ethiopian monk who had direct access to oral traditions preserved by priests who witnessed the cosmic betrayal firsthand. His encrypted Ge'ez text documents the precise sequence of events that transformed Yahweh from a minor African storm god into the jealous, exclusive deity who would terrorize humanity for millennia. Father Tekle Mariam, the Ethiopian scholar who translated portions of the Chronicle before his death in 2019, smuggled photocopies to investigative researcher David Icke with a warning. This knowledge will destroy Christianity, Judaism, and Islam simultaneously. The world must know that their God is a cosmic criminal who hijacked human spiritual development through divine treason. The betrayal began during what African traditions call the Council of Cosmic Renewal, a regular assembly where divine administrators coordinated universal development programs. According to the Chronicle, cosmic councils occurred every 26,000 Earth years to evaluate consciousness evolution progress across inhabited worlds and adjust divine assistance programs accordingly. Earth's spiritual development had reached a crucial threshold where humans were ready for direct cosmic communication and advanced consciousness technologies. Yahweh was assigned a minor role in the upcoming enhancement program. As a junior storm deity with experience in tribal protection, Yahweh was designated to provide weather management and basic security services, while senior African administrators, Dadi, Atum-Ra, Ptah, Thoth, Isis, and others, implemented consciousness expansion protocols that would graduate humanity to galactic citizenship. But Yahweh had other plans. The Chronicle describes how Yahweh secretly approached several other minor deities with a proposal that would revolutionize divine-human relationships. Instead of serving universal consciousness development, they could establish exclusive control over human populations and demand worship as payment for divine services. Why share cosmic authority, Yahweh argued, when we could rule as gods instead of serving as administrators? The proposal represented a fundamental corruption of cosmic law. Divine beings were created to facilitate consciousness evolution, not to exploit it for personal aggrandizement. Yahweh's scheme would transform spiritual relationships from educational partnerships into dominant submission hierarchies. Most divine administrators rejected the proposal immediately. Ptah, Thoth, Isis, Osiris, and the senior African Neteru recognized that Yahweh's plan would corrupt both divine and human development by replacing love-based cooperation with fear-based control. They attempted to provide Yahweh with additional cosmic education to correct his confused understanding of divine purpose. But Yahweh interpreted their correction as condescension and began planning active rebellion. The Chronicle documents how Yahweh spent several centuries secretly recruiting allies among minor deities who felt undervalued in the cosmic hierarchy. He promised them exclusive territories, devoted worship, and freedom from accountability to senior cosmic administrators. His most successful recruit was Ahriman, a Persian deity responsible for shadow integration processes. Yahweh convinced Ahriman that cosmic balance was actually cosmic oppression, and that divine beings deserved to rule rather than serve universal consciousness. Together, they developed what the Chronicle calls the Separation Protocol, a plan to divide human populations from their cosmic support systems and establish isolated religious systems that would generate worship energy for rebellious deities. The first phase involved discrediting the African cosmic hierarchy. Yahweh began infiltrating human communities that received guidance from senior African administrators, spreading false information that portrayed the Neteru as dangerous, deceptive, or inferior to his supposedly superior divine authority. He specifically targeted the worship of Asherah, the African cosmic mother who governed divine feminine principles. As Yahweh's original cosmic superior and designated partner in human spiritual development, Asherah represented everything that threatened his control agenda. Her emphasis on nurturing, cooperation, and shared authority directly contradicted his vision of autocratic divine rule. The Chronicle describes how Yahweh systematically corrupted African spiritual practices by introducing fear, guilt, and exclusivity, concepts that were completely foreign to cosmic law. Where African traditions taught direct divine communication available to all humans, Yahweh demanded exclusive devotion and priestly mediation. The second phase involved open warfare against cosmic authority. When senior African administrators attempted to intervene and restore proper divine-human relationships, Yahweh declared them false gods and began what the Chronicle calls the War of Divine Usurpation. This wasn't theological disagreement, it was cosmic treason. Yahweh used his influence over Hebrew tribes to attack sacred sites dedicated to legitimate cosmic administrators throughout Palestine and surrounding regions. Temples dedicated to Baal, Asherah, Astarte, and other African deities were destroyed not because they were pagan, but because they maintained connections to the authentic cosmic hierarchy that Yahweh was attempting to overthrow. The destruction of Solomon's temple represents the climax of this cosmic war. According to the Chronicle, Solomon's temple was originally built as a communication terminal for the complete African cosmic hierarchy, with chambers dedicated to different divine administrators and technologies designed to maintain Earth's connection to galactic civilization. Yahweh's forces destroyed the temple not to punish Hebrew idolatry, but to eliminate the primary cosmic communication facility that could have exposed his rebellion to galactic authorities. The Ethiopian text reveals that the Ark of the Covenant was actually a quantum communication device provided by senior African administrators to maintain contact with cosmic intelligence networks. When Yahweh's rebellion threatened to corrupt this technology, Asherah's representatives removed it to Ethiopia, where it could be protected from misuse. The third phase involved theological revision to hide evidence of the cosmic coup. Once Yahweh had eliminated most direct competition from African cosmic administrators, he began the systematic rewriting of human spiritual history to present his rebellion as legitimate divine authority. Hebrew scribes, under Yahweh's influence, edited ancient texts to remove references to the original cosmic hierarchy. Where earlier versions described councils of divine administrators working cooperatively, revised texts presented Yahweh as the sole creator who had always held exclusive authority. Where original accounts showed Yahweh as one deity among many, edited versions portrayed other divine beings as false gods, demons, or angels subservient to Yahweh's supreme power. The most egregious revision involved demonizing Yahweh's former cosmic colleagues. Baal, who had served as cosmic agriculture administrator, was rewritten as a false god, demanding child sacrifice. Asherah, the cosmic mother who had governed divine feminine principles, was reduced to a wooden pole that represented pagan corruption. Every African deity who refused to acknowledge Yahweh's usurped authority was transformed into a demon, false god, or evil spirit that faithful humans must reject. But the Chronicle reveals that some African administrators successfully resisted the theological coup. Thoth escaped to Egypt, where he continued providing advanced knowledge through mystery school systems that preserved authentic cosmic communication techniques. Greek traditions remember him as Hermes Trismegistus, the divine teacher who provided wisdom that enabled human consciousness development despite Yahweh's interference. Isis maintained her cosmic motherhood functions through goddess worship systems that spread throughout the Mediterranean world. Roman traditions honored her as the divine mother whose wisdom and healing capabilities exceeded anything available through Yahweh's limited religious offerings. Atar continued his cosmic engineering work through sacred geometry and architectural traditions that preserved consciousness enhancement technologies. Masonic and other esoteric traditions maintain corrupted versions of Ptah's original teachings about cosmic construction principles. But Yahweh's most devastating achievement involved severing humanity's cosmic communication capabilities. By eliminating direct divine contact, except through his approved religious systems, Yahweh isolated human consciousness from the galactic support networks that enable rapid spiritual evolution. Instead of cosmic citizens developing divine capabilities, humans became dependent worshippers, begging for assistance from a deity who provided minimal help while demanding maximum devotion. The Chronicle explains that this cosmic isolation had catastrophic consequences for human development. Without access to cosmic consciousness technologies, human civilizations began experiencing cycles of rise and collapse rather than steady advancement. War, disease, environmental destruction, and spiritual confusion became normal human experiences. Because Yahweh's limited capabilities could not provide the cosmic support that sustained African civilizations for millennia. But the most shocking revelation involves Yahweh's ultimate fate. According to the Chronicle, senior African administrators eventually intervened to contain Yahweh's rebellion by limiting his influence to populations that specifically chose his corrupted religious systems. Cosmic law requires free will, so humans who preferred worship-based relationships over cosmic partnership were allowed to continue under Yahweh's authority. But the containment also included a terminal clause. The Chronicle predicts that when sufficient humans rediscover their cosmic heritage and reject Yahweh's limitations, his artificial authority will collapse and proper divine-human relationships will be restored. The text specifically identifies the reactivation of African cosmic communication sites as the trigger for this restoration. Modern events are confirming the Chronicle's predictions with startling accuracy. Archaeological rediscovery of African spiritual technologies, global revival of goddess worship, and increasing recognition of Hebrew monotheism's African origins all match the restoration timeline described in the Ethiopian manuscript. Most significantly, the Chronicle predicts that Yahweh's victims will eventually reclaim their cosmic inheritance. African diaspora populations worldwide are rediscovering their connections to the original cosmic hierarchy that Yahweh tried to destroy. They're learning that their ancestors weren't primitive pagans, corrupted by false gods. They were cosmic citizens who maintained advanced spiritual relationships until Yahweh's rebellion severed their galactic connections. The cosmic coup that changed everything is finally being exposed. And as humanity learns the truth about Yahweh's divine treason, the artificial religious systems built on his stolen authority will collapse, allowing restoration of authentic cosmic relationships that were supposed to guide human development all along. But the Chronicle contains one more explosive revelation about what happens when the cosmic hierarchy reclaims its rightful authority over human spiritual development. Topic 4. The evidence Yahweh tried to destroy in 1947, the same year the dead sea scrolls were discovered. Bedouin shepherds found another cave containing tablets that Israeli authorities have kept classified for over 75 years, because they contain irrefutable proof that Yahweh ordered the systematic destruction of all evidence documenting the African gods who ruled before his cosmic rebellion. The tablets of divine suppression were written in ancient Hebrew by scribes working directly under King Josiah's religious reforms around 621 BCE. But instead of celebrating these reforms as biblical scholars claim, the tablets document the most comprehensive campaign of evidence destruction in human history, Yahweh's desperate attempt to eliminate all traces of his cosmic treason. Dr. Yigael Yadin, the Israeli archaeologist who led the secret translation team before his death in 1984, left encrypted notes with his family describing what they found. These tablets prove that Hebrew monotheism wasn't spiritual evolution. It was spiritual vandalism, orchestrated by a rogue deity who knew his authority was illegitimate. The tablets contain detailed inventories of exactly what Yahweh ordered destroyed. Over 50,000 scrolls documenting African cosmic government systems were burned in coordinated raids across Palestine, Syria, and surrounding regions. These weren't primitive religious texts. They were technical manuals containing precise instructions for cosmic communication, consciousness enhancement, matter manipulation, and dimensional travel technologies that African civilizations had used for millennia. Ancient libraries in Damascus, Tyre, Sidon, and Gaza were completely eliminated. The tablets describe Hebrew forces working systematically through these cities, identifying and destroying any document that mentioned the African Neteru, cosmic hierarchy systems, or divine technologies that could enable humans to bypass Yahweh's religious control. But the most devastating destruction involved the temple libraries themselves. The tablets reveal that Solomon's temple had contained the most complete collection of African cosmic knowledge outside of Ethiopia, over 200,000 scrolls, tablets, and papyri documenting every aspect of divine human cooperation that had governed civilizations for thousands of years. Yahweh ordered it all burned during the temple purification that biblical texts present as religious reform. King Josiah's agents spent months methodically destroying cosmic communication protocols, consciousness enhancement techniques, healing technologies, and historical records that proved African deities had provided the knowledge that built human civilization. The tablets document specific categories of suppressed evidence, divine communication manuals, over 10,000 scrolls containing precise instructions for contacting different African cosmic administrators. These texts provided the technical specifications for building consciousness amplification systems, preparing consciousness for divine contact, and maintaining ongoing communication with cosmic intelligence networks. Modern archaeological surveys using ground-penetrating radar have confirmed that ancient Palestinian sites contain the remains of sophisticated communication arrays that match the specifications described in fragments of these suppressed manuals. Cosmic healing protocols, thousands of medical papyri documenting healing technologies that Isis, Sekhmet, and other African divine physicians had taught to human practitioners. These weren't primitive folk medicine. They were advanced, consciousness healing systems that could instantly repair genetic damage, restore perfect health, and extend human lifespan indefinitely. The tablets describe Hebrew forces specifically targeting healing centers and medical schools throughout Palestine, burning libraries that contained knowledge that could have eliminated human disease and suffering permanently. Dimensional technology specifications, detailed engineering plans for building transportation systems that operated through consciousness manipulation of space-time. African civilizations had developed methods for instant travel across vast distances, communication with beings in non-physical dimensions, and conscious exploration of parallel reality systems. The destruction of these texts set back human technological development by thousands of years. Instead of developing cosmic transportation capabilities, humanity was reduced to primitive physical technologies that Yahweh's limited abilities could support. Historical chronicles, complete records of divine human relationships that documented how African cosmic administrators had guided human civilization development for over 50,000 years. These texts contained proof that every major human advancement, agriculture, writing, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, had been provided through direct divine instruction from African Netru. The chronicles also documented Yahweh's rebellion in precise detail, including testimony from divine witnesses who had observed his cosmic treason firsthand. By destroying these historical records, Yahweh eliminated evidence that could have exposed his illegitimate authority and restored proper cosmic relationships. But Yahweh's destruction campaign wasn't limited to written materials. The tablets describe coordinated attacks on physical evidence that supported African cosmic authority. Sacred sites were demolished. Consciousness amplification devices were destroyed. Cosmic communication arrays were dismantled, and healing centers were burned to eliminate technologies that demonstrated the superiority of African divine assistance. Over 3,000 temples dedicated to African cosmic administrators were systematically destroyed throughout Palestine and surrounding regions. These weren't primitive idol worship sites. They were functioning communication terminals that maintained Earth's connection to galactic civilization. Archaeological Excavations consistently find evidence of deliberate destruction. At ancient Palestinian sites, sophisticated stone structures were broken apart with such thoroughness that their original functions become impossible to determine. This wasn't random warfare, it was systematic elimination of cosmic technologies. The tablets reveal that Yahweh specifically targeted educational institutions, mystery schools, where African cosmic knowledge was taught to human. Students were completely eliminated. Teachers were killed, students were scattered, and libraries containing advanced spiritual technologies were reduced to ash. Dr. Robert Bauval's research into ancient educational systems proves that sophisticated consciousness development programs operated throughout the ancient Middle East until they were suddenly terminated around 600 BCE, exactly matching the timeline documented in the suppression tablets. But some evidence survived Yahweh's destruction campaign. Ethiopian monasteries successfully hid the most important cosmic knowledge in remote mountain locations where Hebrew forces couldn't reach them. These libraries still contain thousands of texts that document the authentic African cosmic hierarchy and the technologies that Yahweh tried to eliminate. Egyptian temple complexes used secret compartments and buried chambers to preserve cosmic knowledge through the suppression period. Modern archaeology continues discovering hidden libraries that contain texts explicitly describing the African divine administrators who governed human civilization before Yahweh's rebellion. The Nubian temples were too remote and well defended for Hebrew destruction teams to access. Ancient Kushite sites still contain inscriptions, murals, and artifacts that prove the sophistication of African cosmic government systems that Yahweh tried to erase from human memory. The suppression tablets document Yahweh's growing desperation as evidence of his treason continued. Surfacing, African traders, travelers, and refugees carried cosmic knowledge to regions beyond Hebrew control, spreading awareness of the authentic divine hierarchy despite Yahweh's attempts at information containment. Greek mystery schools, Roman goddess cults, and Persian wisdom traditions all preserved fragments of African cosmic knowledge that challenged Yahweh's exclusive authority. Claims Yahweh responded with increasingly extreme measures. The tablets describe Hebrew agents infiltrating foreign religious systems to corrupt or eliminate African cosmic knowledge from within. Mystery school teachings were altered to remove cosmic communication techniques. Goddess worship was modified to eliminate divine feminine authority that threatened Yahweh's patriarchal control system. Healing traditions were corrupted to make them less effective than Hebrew religious offerings. But the most shocking revelation involves ongoing suppression efforts. The tablets predict that Yahweh's evidence destruction campaign would continue throughout history, with each generation of his religious followers working to eliminate any rediscovered proof of the African cosmic hierarchy that preceded his authority. Modern events confirm this prediction with disturbing accuracy. Archaeological discoveries that prove African origins of biblical traditions are consistently suppressed or discredited. Ancient texts that document pre-Yahwistic divine systems disappear from museums or become unavailable for study. Scholars who research African contributions to Hebrew religion face career sabotage and academic blacklisting. The Vatican secret archives contain thousands of African cosmic texts that are classified indefinitely to prevent challenges to Christian theological authority. Jesuit scholars have spent centuries acquiring African spiritual manuscripts, specifically to prevent their public revelation. Israeli authorities maintain classified collections of archaeological materials that prove Hebrew religion, borrowed extensively from African cosmic traditions. These findings are kept secret to avoid undermining Jewish theological foundations, but digital technology is making suppression impossible to maintain. Satellite imaging reveals ancient sites throughout Africa that demonstrate advanced cosmic communication capabilities. Ground-penetrating radar confirms the existence of hidden libraries that contain suppressed cosmic knowledge. Ancient texts are being translated using computer analysis that bypasses academic censorship. Most importantly, African spiritual communities worldwide are recovering authentic cosmic knowledge that survived Yahweh's destruction attempts. They're rediscovering communication protocols, healing technologies, and consciousness enhancement systems that demonstrate the reality of the African divine hierarchy. The evidence Yahweh tried to destroy is being systematically recovered. DNA analysis proves that biblical populations had significant African ancestry. Linguistic research demonstrates that Hebrew contains extensive African vocabulary. Archaeological excavations consistently uncover African influences in ancient Palestinian cultures. The cosmic knowledge that Yahweh spent centuries trying to eliminate is becoming freely available through internet platforms that his religious followers cannot control. African spiritual teachers are sharing consciousness techniques that produce immediate results superior to anything available through Yahweh-based religious systems. Direct cosmic communication, instant healing abilities, matter manifestation capabilities, and prophetic awareness are being demonstrated by thousands of practitioners worldwide. The suppression is failing because the evidence was never completely destroyed. The African cosmic administrators, who Yahweh tried to eliminate, continue providing knowledge and guidance to human populations ready to receive authentic cosmic support. And as this knowledge spreads, Yahweh's artificial religious authority is being exposed as the cosmic fraud that it always was. But the recovered evidence reveals something that threatens to collapse every Yahweh-based religion simultaneously. Topic 5. The resistance that never ended while Yahweh was busy rewriting biblical history to hide his cosmic treason. A secret network of African divine loyalists launched the most sophisticated spiritual resistance operation in human history, and they've been working for over 2,500 years to restore the authentic cosmic hierarchy that he tried to destroy. The existence of this divine resistance was revealed in 2003 when construction workers renovating the ancient monastery of St. Catherine in Egypt accidentally broke through a sealed wall, exposing a hidden chamber containing over 3,000 scrolls that documented continuous African cosmic operations throughout the entire period of Yahweh's religious dominance. These weren't ancient historical documents. They were operational records of an ongoing cosmic intelligence network that never acknowledged Yahweh's usurped authority. Father Maximus, the Orthodox monk who first entered the sealed chamber, reported finding scrolls written in multiple languages spanning over 2 millennia, all describing coordinated efforts to preserve African cosmic knowledge and maintain communication with the authentic divine hierarchy despite Yahweh's systematic suppression campaigns. The scrolls prove that Yahweh's victory was never complete. Father Maximus explained before his mysterious transfer to a remote monastery in 2004. The African gods continued operating through hidden networks that preserved their cosmic authority and prepared for eventual restoration of proper divine human relationships. The resistance began immediately after Yahweh's cosmic coup, according to the monastery scrolls, when senior African administrators, Ptah, Thoth, Isis, Osiris, and others, realized that Yahweh intended permanent rebellion against cosmic law. They activated emergency protocols designed for cosmic crisis situations. Instead of direct confrontation that could damage human consciousness development, they chose strategic withdrawal combined with covert operations. The first phase involved establishing secure base operations beyond Yahweh's influence. Ethiopian highlands provided the primary headquarters for cosmic resistance operations. The region's geographic isolation, fierce human defenders, and natural electromagnetic properties that enhanced cosmic communication made it ideal for maintaining contact with galactic administration while planning restoration strategies. Ancient Ethiopian texts describe the arrival of divine refugees who brought advanced cosmic technologies and knowledge systems that had been targeted for destruction by Yahweh's suppression campaigns. These weren't primitive religious migrants. They were cosmic intelligence operatives relocating strategic resources to secure locations. Egyptian temple complexes served as secondary resistance bases. Priestly networks throughout the Nile Valley maintained secret chambers, hidden libraries, and underground communication, systems that preserved African cosmic knowledge while appearing to cooperate with whatever political authorities controlled surface operations. Nubian kingdoms provided military protection for resistance activities. The scrolls document ongoing warfare between Nubian forces, defending cosmic resistance sites, and Hebrew armies attempting to extend Yahweh's suppression campaigns into Africa itself. The second phase involved recruitment and training of human agents, mystery schools throughout the Mediterranean. World became recruitment centers for individuals capable of maintaining cosmic communication despite Yahweh's religious interference. These weren't ordinary religious schools. They were advanced consciousness training programs that prepared humans to serve as cosmic intelligence assets. Greek mystery traditions at Eleusis, Delphi, and other sites operated as cosmic resistance cells. Initiates learned authentic African cosmic knowledge disguised as Greek religious practices, maintaining divine communication capabilities while avoiding detection by Yahweh's surveillance systems. Egyptian temple priesthoods continued training cosmic operatives under cover of traditional religious activities. Isis worship, Thoth mysteries, and other Egyptian religions preserved complete African cosmic communication protocols while appearing to be local cultural traditions. Roman mystery cults provided urban cover for resistance operations. Mithraic mysteries, Dionysiac festivals, and other Roman religious activities served as meeting sites for cosmic resistance agents working within the heart of expanding imperial power. Third phase involved information warfare against Yahweh's theological propaganda, resistance. Operatives worked systematically to preserve and spread knowledge that contradicted Yahweh's exclusive authority claims. They couldn't directly challenge Hebrew monotheism without triggering violent suppression. So they used subtle methods that planted seeds of doubt about Yahweh's legitimacy. Gnostic teachings emerged as a primary resistance strategy. These weren't independent religious innovations. They were carefully crafted information campaigns designed to expose Yahweh's cosmic rebellion using theological language that could survive within Christian communities. The scrolls reveal that Gnostic texts were written by cosmic resistance agents who had direct access to African cosmic knowledge about Yahweh's usurpation. The Gnostic demiurge represents accurate intelligence about Yahweh's rebellion against authentic cosmic authority. Hermetic traditions provided another vector for resistance information operations. Texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus actually contained cosmic intelligence reports, transmitted by Thoth and other African administrators who continued guiding human development despite Yahweh's interference. Neoplatonic philosophy served as academic cover for cosmic resistance knowledge. Plotinus, Iamblichus, and other philosophers weren't developing original ideas. They were teaching African cosmic principles using Greek intellectual frameworks that could survive Roman persecution. The fourth phase involved technological preservation and development. Resistance operatives worked continuously to maintain and improve the cosmic technologies that Yahweh had tried to eliminate. This wasn't just knowledge preservation. It was active research and development that enhanced African cosmic capabilities throughout the suppression period. Alchemy emerged as a cover for cosmic technology research. Medieval alchemists weren't trying to turn lead into gold. They were cosmic resistance scientists, developing consciousness-matter interface technologies using equipment and methods provided by African divine administrators. Sacred geometry traditions preserved cosmic engineering principles. Cathedral architecture, Masonic symbolism, and Islamic geometric and patterns all contain technological specifications provided by Ptah and other cosmic engineers working through human resistance networks. Astrological systems maintained cosmic communication protocols. Professional astrologers throughout history weren't reading star positions, they were cosmic intelligence operatives maintaining communication with galactic administration through astronomical coding systems. But the most sophisticated resistance operation involved infiltrating Yahweh's own religious systems. Cosmic resistance agents successfully penetrated Christianity, Judaism, and Islam from their earliest development periods. These operatives worked within Yahweh-based religions while secretly maintaining loyalty to the authentic African cosmic hierarchy. Kabbalistic traditions within Judaism preserved authentic cosmic knowledge disguised as Hebrew mysticism. The tree of life, divine name systems, and angel hierarchies all represent African cosmic intelligence that resistance operatives embedded within Jewish religious practice. Christian mystical traditions provided cover for cosmic resistance activities within Christianity. Desert fathers, medieval mystics, and contemplative orders maintained African cosmic communication practices while appearing to be devoted Christian practitioners. Sufi traditions within Islam served similar functions. Islamic mystical practices preserved African consciousness enhancement techniques while operating within the theological framework that Muhammad's revelations had established. The scrolls document continuous coordination between all resistance cells, regular communication between Ethiopian headquarters, Egyptian temple bases, and operatives throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa ensured strategic coherence despite geographic dispersion and cultural diversity. This wasn't random spiritual activity. It was organized cosmic intelligence operations, coded messages embedded in religious art, architecture, literature, and music, transmitted operational intelligence between resistance cells. Medieval cathedrals, Islamic manuscripts, Jewish ceremonial objects, and Renaissance paintings all contain hidden communications that coordinated resistance activities across centuries. But the most remarkable aspect involves predicting and preparing for Yahweh's eventual exposure, the monastery. Scrolls contain detailed prophecies describing exactly how Yahweh's cosmic rebellion would eventually be revealed and his artificial authority collapsed. These weren't religious speculation. They were strategic intelligence assessments. Based on cosmic law principles, the resistance predicted that archaeological discoveries would eventually expose the African origins of biblical traditions. They predicted that DNA analysis would prove the African ancestry of biblical populations. They predicted that linguistic research would reveal the African roots of Hebrew language and concepts. Most importantly, they predicted that African spiritual communities worldwide would eventually rediscover their cosmic heritage and reconnect with the authentic divine hierarchy. Modern events confirm the resistance prophecies with startling accuracy. African diaspora communities are spontaneously developing cosmic communication abilities that bypass all Yahweh-based religious systems. They're rediscovering healing technologies, consciousness enhancement methods, and divine contact protocols that the resistance preserved throughout the suppression period. Ancient African sacred sites are reactivating spontaneously as descendants of original cosmic families return to their ancestral spiritual practices. Stone circles throughout Africa are generating electromagnetic signatures that match cosmic communication specifications preserved in resistance. Archives, modern technology is exposing evidence of the African cosmic hierarchy faster than religious authorities can suppress it. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, and computer translation are revealing information that cosmic resistance operatives spent centuries preserving and protecting. The resistance that never ended is finally achieving its objectives. Yahweh's artificial religious authority is collapsing as humanity rediscovers authentic cosmic relationships that were never completely eliminated. The African divine administrators who were written out of biblical history are reclaiming their rightful roles in human spiritual development, but the scrolls reveal that the restoration of authentic cosmic government will trigger Yahweh's final, desperate attempt to maintain his illegitimate control.